The heavy oak doors of the apostolic palace slam shut, sealing the room with the scent of burning beeswax and nervous sweat. It is June 1493 in Rome. 13-year-old Lucrezia Borgia stands paralyzed in stiff brocade, the centerpiece of the most scandalous wedding history has ever recorded. Her father, Pope Alexander VI, watches from the shadows of the chamber. He does not require promises, he demands biological proof. The alliance with Milan hangs on a razor's edge, dependent entirely on this night being consummated 3 times to satisfy the witnesses. A silver basin of rosewater sits undisturbed on the vanity, a symbol of a purity that is about to be auctioned off by the Vicar of Christ himself. But why did the most powerful man in Christendom need to orchestrate such a public violation of his daughter? And what dark secret was the Borgia family desperate to bury beneath the sheets of the bridal bed? Silence is a luxury the damned cannot afford. If you enjoy these dark histories, leave a like and subscribe and comment below where you're listening from. And now, back to the story. The feasting in the halls of the Vatican is a distant roar, muted by thick tapestries and stone walls, but inside the bridal chamber, the silence is heavy enough to choke on. Lucrezia is not marched into a damp dungeon, yet the effect is the same. She is 13 years old, stripped of her childhood by the rough hands of her ladies-in-waiting, who prepare her not for romance, but for a transaction. The room is stifling, smelling of stale incense and the dying embers of a brazier. Here, in the heart of Rome, the concept of privacy has been abolished by papal decree. Institutional control exerts itself through the ritual of undressing. Every layer of silk removed is a layer of autonomy stripped away. The women checking her, preparing her, do not speak to her as a girl, they address her as the Alliance. She has been renamed by circumstance, reduced from a person to a political bridge connecting the Borgia papacy to the military might of the Sforza family. Her father, Pope Alexander VI, remains perilously close, his presence a hovering shadow that fills the corridors. He treats the upcoming consummation not as a sacrament, but as a notary sealing a deed. The expectation is terrifyingly specific. The union must be proven, not just witnessed, and repeated to ensure no legal loophole can undo the knot. Giovanni Sforza, the Lord of Pesaro, enters the room. He is 26, a man grown, yet in this room he is as much a captive of the Borgia ambition as his bride. He knows the reports expected of him. He knows that the Pope demands evidence of virility to secure the Milanese armies. The air grows cold despite the summer heat, the stone floor seeping a chill through the rugs. Lucrezia sits on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap, knuckles white. She fixes her eyes on the silver basin, watching the water settle into a flat, mirror-like stillness. The bedroom door has no lock on the inside. She does not fight. There is no screaming, no overturning of furniture. Her resistance is quieter, more terrifying. She retreats inward, building a fortress behind her eyes where the Pope's commands cannot reach. As the candles flicker low, the demand for the 3 times is whispered like a sentence. It is an offer of mercy, she is told. Perform this duty well, and she will be the respected Lady of Pesaro, free from the suffocating grip of Rome. But the price of this mercy is the absolute surrender of her body to the ledger books of the Holy See. She learns in the dark that her blood is the currency purchasing her family's power. The night stretches on, measured not in hours, but in the grinding friction of obligation. Blood seals contract stronger than ink. 4 years pass, and the political map of Italy is redrawn in blood and ink. The Sforza alliance, once the lifeline of the Vatican, has withered into a liability. The French are marching, and Pope Alexander VI requires a new groom for his daughter, one who can offer a gateway to Naples. But a living husband is an obstacle that canon law cannot easily remove. The condition for Lucrezia's freedom is stated openly in the papal apartments, devoid of shame or irony. Giovanni Sforza must be erased. The Borgias do not file for divorce, they file for annulment. The official narrative shifts with terrifying speed. The Pope, who once demanded 3 witnesses to the consummation, now declares that the marriage never happened. He asserts that his daughter is Virgo intacta, a virgin intact, claiming that Sforza Despite his youth and the 3 times recorded in the Vatican's memory, was impotent. The silver basin of rosewater is replaced by a poisoned chalice. Lucrezia sits at the center of this storm, a woman of 17 forced to choose between the husband she has lived with and the father who holds the keys to heaven. The trial is not held in a court of law, but in the corridors of the Apostolic Palace, where whispers carry the weight of execution orders. Her brother, Cesare Borgia, now prowling the halls with the swagger of a prince rather than a cardinal, makes the threat physical. He visits the couple's quarters, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his dagger. The message is clear: convert to the lie or vanish. Sforza attempts to resist. He roars his indignation to the courts of Italy, shouting that he had known his wife innumerable times. But his protests are met with the cold machinery of the papacy. The Borgias begin to tighten the noose. The servants in the Sforza household fall silent. The food tastes metallic. The air in the room grows heavy with the anticipation of violence. It is Lucrezia who ends the stalemate. She does not deliver a grand speech of rebellion. She finds her husband alone, his face gray with the strain of the siege, and delivers a single, cold refusal to play the role of the grieving widow. "Do not wait for the morning," she tells him. She refuses to let him die, not out of love, but out of a desperate need to avoid the stain of his murder on her conscience. Sforza flees Rome on a Turkish horse, riding until the animal collapses, escaping the dagger only to face the humiliation of the pen. History is written by those who hold the ink. In his absence, the trial proceeds against a ghost. The Pope appoints a commission to examine Lucrezia, a humiliating medical theater designed to prove a physiological impossibility. The matrons of Rome, paid and pressured, emerge to declare her a virgin. The discipline required to endure this is the true test of her faith. She must stand before the cardinals and swear that her marriage bed was a desert, denying her own body, her own memory, and the nights of 1493. This silence, once a sign of her oppression, hardens into armor. She realizes that truth in the Vatican is not a fixed point. It is a commodity to be traded. The core why of the initial wedding, the safety of the papacy, is resolved by its destruction. The alliance is dead because the Pope no longer needs Milan. He needs the support of France. And the price? It is paid by Sforza, who is forced to sign a document admitting his own impotence, destroying his reputation to save his life. But the greater price is paid by Lucrezia. By legally reclaiming her virginity, she becomes a creature of myth and scandal, a woman who can be used, consumed, and reset like a clock. The virginity is not a return to purity. It is a return to the marketplace. She is wrapped once again in white, her value restored, her history erased, ready to be sold to the next bidder. A lie signed in blood becomes the truth. While the ink dries on the annulment papers declaring Lucrezia an untouched flower, she vanishes behind the high walls of the convent of San Sisto. The official story is that she seeks spiritual refuge to cleanse herself of the Sforza ordeal. But inside the cloister, the air smells not of sanctity, but of boiled linen and fear. The stone floors are cold against her knees, but it is not prayer that keeps her bent double. It is the physical reality of a lie that is growing larger by the day. The silver basin returns, but this time it is not filled with rosewater for a wedding, but with warm water and rags. A wordless rite of memory takes place in the dim light of a cell, far from the eyes of the cardinals. Lucrezia's ladies, the few who remain loyal, move in a coordinated dance of silence. They tighten laces to hide a swelling curve. They burn soiled linens in the grate. There are no speeches here, only the terrified efficiency of women managing a biological crisis that could bring down the papacy. The virgin restored by the courts is 6 months pregnant. The father is not Sforza. Rumors whisper the name of Pedro Calderon, known as Perotto, a simple messenger who carried letters between the Pope and his daughter. But Perotto cannot speak. His body is fished out of the Tiber on February 14, 1498, alongside Lucrezia's maid. His hands are bound and his neck is broken. The river washes away the immediate evidence, leaving only a wet silence where a lover used to be. The dead cannot testify, but they can still accuse. The truth is not found in the river, but buried deep within the Vatican's secret archives in a box that remains sealed for centuries. In March 1498, just 3 months after Lucrezia is legally declared a virgin, a child is born in secret. He is named Giovanni Borgia. To explain his existence without destroying the valuable political asset of Lucrezia's virginity, the Borgia bureaucracy produces a legal paradox. 2 papal bulls are issued on the same day, a bureaucratic sleight of hand that defies logic. The first, made public, declares the child to be the bastard son of Cesare Borgia and an unknown unmarried woman. It provides a cover story. But the second bull, the hidden one, tells a darker story. It acknowledges the child as the son of Pope Alexander VI himself. In both documents, the mother is nameless. Lucrezia is erased from the genealogy of her own son. She is present only in the negative space, the unknown woman whose existence must be denied to keep the market value of the Borgia bride intact. The infans Romanus, the Roman infant, is the hidden rock upon which the ship of state was nearly wrecked. The child is spirited away, raised in the shadows of the court, a living ghost who calls Lucrezia sister rather than mother. The rebirth is complete. Lucrezia emerges from the convent with a flat stomach and a restored reputation, ready for her next husband. The evidence of her 3 nights with Sforza and the nights that followed with others is not gone. It has simply been renamed. The child plays in the Vatican gardens, a breathing testament to the lie, while the Pope watches from the balcony, holding the secret bull that ensures the boy's inheritance while obliterating his origin. A secret kept by 3 people is only safe if 2 are dead. The years grind the Borgia dynasty into dust. Pope Alexander VI dies, bloating rapidly in the summer heat, his body turning black before it is even cold. Cesare fights and fails, dying alone in a skirmish in Navarre. The grand ambitions of a united Italy under the Borgia bull crumble. But in Ferrara, Lucrezia survives. She becomes a patron of the arts, a beloved duchess, wearing a hair shirt beneath her silk gowns as penance for a life she did not choose. Yet, the erasure continues. In the ledgers of history, the entries for her life are overwritten with the black ink of scandal. The nuance of her survival is lost, replaced by the caricature of the poisoner, the temptress, the witch. The boy, Giovanni, the Roman infant, lives a quiet life, his true parentage a whisper that follows him until his death. He is a footnote, a blank entry in the family tree, a son without a mother. Distant witnesses speak of Lucrezia's final days in 1519. She dies at 39, following childbirth, the very act that defined her value to her father. As she lies fading, the smell of beeswax and incense returns, echoing that first wedding night in the apostolic palace. The silver basin is there, catching the sweat of her fever. The cycle closes. The woman who was consummated 3 times to seal a treaty, then restored to virginity to seal another, finally escapes the transaction. Her body is no longer currency, but the echo remains. The heavy oak doors of the Vatican still stand. The archives still hold the 2 contradictory bulls side by side, proof that truth was just another law the Borgias felt entitled to rewrite. The image of the 13-year-old girl waiting for the door to open never truly fades. She is trapped in the amber of that first terrible night, waiting for a mercy that never comes. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like. Silence is the only history that never lies.